Good morning, guys. So we're here with another episode, and today's title is "Stop Being a Victim." What are we going to get from that, James?
Probably a substantial lot because people don't like hearing. As soon as you say that word and then stop, they're not a fan.
That's true. Well, we're gonna discuss the difference of being a victim, difference of being vulnerable, and the difference of weakness. And we are going to break down briefly the difference in what is a victim. Okay, because I would say there's two types of victim. There's stuff that's happened to you, and there's a mindset. We're talking more of the mindset, but they do. Well, I think they do bleed into each other, as we've sort of been discussing pre-show. Is shit stuff happens to good people.
Yeah, that's true.
How are you going to move past that? If you can't control it happening or what happened, you can't go back in time. Is that going to define you, or are you going to move past it? That's my sort of thoughts on there.
No, I don't disagree. There's a difference between a victim mindset and being a victim. People can be victims of crime, victims of domestic abuse, victims of all sorts of things. What we're not talking about that. We're talking about a victim mindset, a victimhood mindset, where if something goes wrong, it's everybody else's fault. It's not your fault. There's no personal responsibility. Everyone else's fault. That's what we're really concentrating on. That mindset.
The mindset element. So, firstly, we're going to go through vulnerability versus weakness versus victimhood, and then we're gonna give you some tools to move past it or move past victimhood. So, vulnerability. Explain that to me, James.
Explain vulnerability. Vulnerability is a complicated word because it has multiple meanings. In this sense, I think we should talk about two of those meanings. So the first one, to be vulnerable to something, is to essentially be weak to something, at risk of something. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah.
like for example, just at a non-emotional base level, I'm vulnerable to maths. I'm
Yeah.
terrible at maths. I'm terrible at maths. Always have been. Makes me really anxious. I don't like looking at numbers. I don't like talking about numbers. I dislike numbers. I am vulnerable to maths. So there's that element to it. It's something that you are at risk of in a negative way. So there's that definition. There's another definition as well, which is to reframe that weakness. So what I mean by that is to admit you're vulnerable to something can be seen as a strength. I think
I agree with that. I agree with that.
because
We've discussed this at length in past, but yeah, sorry, go on.
yeah, I mean, if you're willing to let a bit of ego go, because ego's tied closely to what I'm discussing here with the to be vulnerable side of things. If you let a bit of ego go and actually accept, you know what, I'm not very good at that, and it's bothering me. Once you've accepted that you're not very good at something and you want to change, you can take steps to get better at whatever that vulnerability is. I mean, surely there must be parallels in your past with CrossFit or Olympic weightlifting where you
Yeah,
identify
absolutely.
that you're weak at a movement and you're going to have to do something to get better. Or you could look. I mean, what I'm thinking is, correct me if I'm wrong. Like CrossFit is multidisciplined, so
Yeah.
you have to. You're not going to be. There are very few people that are good at everything. You know, like not everyone's going to be Rich Froning. So you have.
Everyone defaults to what they're strong at, what they're good at, and you
Yeah,
see a lot of people. They get very good in certain areas, and then you get the really good people that go, no, I'm going to get good at the areas I'm weak at. I'm good enough at that area. I'm good enough at weightlifting. I need to get better at running, for example. Yeah, that takes a growth mindset for you there, but we'll discuss that later. Yeah, it's. I mean, that's the whole of CrossFit and strength and conditioning is identifying weakness and moving past it, knowing what being able to admit to yourself what you're weak at, not just thinking you can be better in other areas.
and look,
That moves us. Oh, go ahead.
before
Go ahead.
we should move on from that we're not paying lip service to that. That is hard. That's hard to actually stand there, look yourself in the mirror, and go, "I'm not very good at that, but I'm going to make myself do it to get better at it." That takes a lot. I mean, is it fair enough to say that when you had your box, that there would be individuals that would avoid certain days because they knew they were going to be doing exercises or WODs that involve movements that they didn't want to do?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and you know, Saturdays I always used to keep that workout secret because if people wanted to show up on a Saturday, it was always harder. We always did nasty stuff, but
Yeah,
there was
I remember.
yeah. Oh, and there was a long period of time where every Saturday involved running, so everyone sort of become a joke. And a couple of people sort of had a chat and sort of kicked off a little bit about it. And I was like, it's my job as a coach to guide you through that. You're not very good at it. There's a reason you're hating the fact that we're running all the time. Get good at it, then you won't hate it.
There's something, you know, I think, I don't know who says it, building calluses on your brain. There's
I
something
like
there's
that.
something to that, isn't there? If you make yourself do, like, I, you know me, I do not like lifting weights. And it's really strange when I have to explain to people. They ask, like, if you had uh, an exercise that you'd say you're the best at, what is it? It's running. Like, if
Yeah,
I decide that I'm going to run, I adapt. It's still at this age, at 38. I adapt really quick. Like, I could easily, not easily, that's a lie. Let's not lie. But I could very quickly get to a point where I could run a half marathon and a full marathon still very quickly at my age, because it's just, I've got, for some reason, I'm naturally good at that sort of long distance endurance. So I have
you're a freak. You are a freak at running,
uh,
which has never made sense because you never look like it.
no
Sort of 6 foot, 6 foot. Were you 6'2"?
6'2", yeah,
6'2" bloke that's always never been a string bean,
no.
pounding the pavement fast.
Yeah, it's weird, and I have to make myself lift weights because I'm not very strong. I'm just not, and I've made myself do it because A, it's good for me, and B, I'm not good at it, so I get better all the time, and I get mental stuff out of it as well. I get mental fortitude because I go, okay, I've done something I didn't want to do today. And that's really difficult for people to hear sometimes. It's like, why do I want to do that? I don't get anything out of it. I don't enjoy it. I think you need to balance the both. Do things that you love to do, but also balance that out. Make yourself do things you don't want to do because there are mental and physical gains to be made. That's what I think.
Yeah, and look, let's take that outside of the gym for a second. We both like having a beer, but
Yeah.
we don't default. We don't default to it every day. Maybe
No.
when we were younger, but we
Yeah.
don't default to it every day. You know, we save it because too much fun doesn't become fun anymore.
Exactly.
That sort of kind of covered weakness a bit, but do you want to gloss over weakness or go anything else to
Yeah, I
cover on
mean,
weakness?
vulnerability and weakness they go hand in hand. I mean, weakness, it could be physical, it could be psychological, it could be both. It could be your relationship with, you believe people, or you believe people think you're weak. Does that make sense? If I show vulnerability, people will think I'm weak.
It's a massive misconception. I mean, it's one thing we always ask on courses whenever we're doing mental health or mindset or leadership. Again, what is vulnerability? And
I mean,
people always go weakness.
yeah. Look, I mean, with my background, all right, can I give you an anecdote? A little
Please
anecdote.
do.
I don't know if you remember, I was very lucky, other than when I got sepsis and I nearly died trying to do the commando test. I only had one major injury, and it wasn't really a major injury. It could have been, but we caught it early on. Do you remember I had that issue with my knee? I just couldn't.
You know what? You know why I remember you had an issue with your knee
Why?
because you came home and you were just given cake trays by Rosalind, and I got nothing. I was fuming.
Yeah, just for clarity, Rosalind, I kind of got adopted by one of our friends' families when my parents emigrated to Australia, because I come from a forces background, so I stayed to join the Marines, and that was my home base. And yeah, she was very good to me, and She was hard.
I was the fat friend that got all the food, and I got no cake. You had this big tray of Battenberg and all
Yeah,
sorts of nice
yeah.
stuff, and I was just like
She
fuming.
look. To be fair, holistically, she is the perfect person in regards to that mother role. She will look after you, but if you fuck up, you're gonna know about it as well. She was hard on us the other way.
She was hard on all of us. She was the group mum. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
being woken up by her, hung over on the sofa, shouted at for sleeping on the sofa, not the floor, and then having to clean her skirting boards and hoover up.
Yep.
And I was like, oh.
She
But
she
discipline.
she will make you blooming embrace your vulnerability. 100%. So yeah, I had that issue with my knee, and it was a patella issue. I had patella luxation, which didn't need surgery in the end. It needed rehab. It was like right at the beginnings of. And I remember you get put in rehab troop or BIF troop, they call it. So I didn't get to go on an exercise to the east coast of the States. I missed it to rehab my knee. So I stayed with the other lads in rehab. And there was a change of the guard, like a new sergeant major came in. And as the old sergeant major was leaving, there's like kind of a crossover where you get to know the lads and all that stuff. And I remember you had to always go down to company lines, and it was on that one, it was just a block, so you'd stand in a stairwell. And the old sergeant major was reading a name. He says, "Can you just say what injuries you've got, so the new sergeant major can have an understanding of what's going on?" And as he read out names out, he said, "Yeah, like Corporal Flaherty, da da da." As you said, your injury, that new sergeant major just like tutted, like shook his head, like as if to like say, you're a bitch, you're all weak. And that was, that was very common in the Royal Marines. There is that mindset where it's a bit like a shark tank. If you show weakness or demonstrate weakness or vocalize weakness, it's not everybody, but there are some in circles that will literally jump on you. Like literally like an animal in the wild showing weakness, you'll get preyed upon. So
Alpha male environment, isn't it?
it's very difficult, and that's why significantly lads get really badly injured, etc., because they will not admit something's wrong, because they have to admit that they're weak, they've become susceptible to something, and then they're worried about that perception. Even I remember when I got back, like I rehabbed my knee. And I went back and joined my company, and my sergeant said, "I'm actually surprised to see you." And I said, "Well, why is that, Sergeant?" And he goes, "A lot of people get into this position and they just don't come back. They just don't, because
Get comfortable at home.
they get comfortable, And that was it just never was me. So it's not nice, basically, where you've got someone looking down at you and basically going, "You're a bitch, you're weak." But at the same time, like, I can't control what that sergeant major thinks. In my head, I was thinking, I'm like, "You're a prick, mate." Do you know what I mean? I'm not happy.
Yeah.
I'd rather be in the States with the lads, going on exercise and then doing some traveling. I don't want to be stuck on the edge of Dartmoor with you. So, there's that element of it, but then it also gave me a kind of kick up the bum to get better. I was like, "I'll show you. I'll go back." I can't control what he thinks, but I can get out of there, by using that as fuel to motivate me, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So victimhood then. What is victimhood?
As I said, I just want to again reiterate, we're talking about a victimhood mentality where we're not talking about someone who's been the victim of a crime, etc. We're talking about when you get stuck in a cycle of negative thought pattern, where you believe that everything that goes wrong in your life and everything that is not given to you is because the world is against you or it's someone else's fault. That's what I think that victimhood mentality is. What about yourself? What do you think?
God hates me. That sort of,
God
it's the world's
hates me.
fault. God hates me. Yeah, it's yeah. The universe is conspiring against me, and it's everything's out of my control. Well, it is. Accept it. But not everything.
I think we're susceptible to it, though. I mean, still, I can catch myself trying to go down that route. It won't go on for very long, but certainly sometimes days. I'll look at something's happened. It's very easy to revert back to, why is this happening to me? What have I done to deserve this?
Well, it goes. I think it's ingrained in us because it goes back to it's the old sayings, isn't it? It always comes in threes, and actually, or it never rains, it pours. And actually, when something bad happens, there's usually, I think we're just attuned to spot the other bad stuff that happens, and it feels, or maybe not even spot it. It just feels worse because you're like, oh, that's happened. Oh no, that's happened. Oh, I've got a puncture. Now I'm late. Oh no, there's a traffic jam. Oh, now I'm getting cut off and people aren't being polite on the road. It's that sort of we default to negative from a safety perspective. I think it's what probably kept our ancestors alive a little bit. But
That's interesting. I don't think of it in that sense. Like maybe it's a
I think there's an
survival instinct.
element. We've just
Okay.
advanced past it, haven't we?
How, as a matter of interest, how did your parents approach things that went wrong in your life as a child? Because I think a lot of this stems from how you are mentored as a child.
You'll be all right. Deal with it. You'll live.
Is that sort of the take? Yeah, similar to me, mate. Like I grew up in a forces family, so because of that, I mean, I don't know. I don't know about, maybe we talk a little bit about where your parents came from. So my parents, very working class. Both sides are in the armed forces, but there was always this: we need to do the best with what we've got, with the resources we have, and we need to try really hard. So, like for example, my dad lived in Lee Park, West Lee Park, which at the time was the biggest council estate in Europe. Right? The locals that didn't live there called it Flea Park. That's what it was called. And I still remember going to my nan's house, and she lived in a terrace. And either side of the house, like the houses next to, there was rubbish everywhere, fences kicked in, etc. But my nan's house always looked really nice and well kept up and all that stuff. And
Proud.
yeah, and like his dad was in the navy, etc. And they both worked really hard their whole life. Unfortunately, we lost both of them to lung cancer, which was really, really, really sad. But they worked really hard their whole life, like to provide for the family. And that was my dad's mentality. It's like you got to make do with the best that you've got. He could have sat there, like I remember it, like just little silly things, like when he was, before he joined the forces, he'd try and get into bars and stuff in Portsmouth, and then ID him, I'd look at his ID and just look at where he lived and went, "You're not coming in," because people that lived there were known for basically just being dropouts, thugs, criminals. They were just seen as less than. And so he was like, I've got to use my resources. I've got to get out of here, which is why I ended up joining the RAF. So I think that definitely leaked into my mindset as a child. It was very much take personal ownership and responsibility when things go wrong, even if it happens to you. And I don't know if everybody wants to hear that, but
No. No. And so my dad, on his side, quite middle class. Lucky there. My dad left when I was about 8 or 9. I still, not worries me. I still saw him growing up, but
yeah,
he wasn't the best dad. Wasn't the worst dad either. So fairly neutral in that regard. But he did leave us in quite a bit, or left my mum in quite a bit of debt when he went, and didn't really take any ownership or responsibility of that. And obviously, you see that, and you sort of see what you can get away with. But my mum was very much work ethic. You graft, you work. She didn't have much money to herself anyway at the end of each month. I remember, woe is me now, I remember hiding behind the sofa or one of the doors, vague memories when the bailiffs were knocking on the door and we were hiding so they didn't think we were in. But
wow,
my mum had work ethic. You graft and you work hard. You
mm-hmm.
get out what you put in.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of leached into me, really. It's that take responsibility for your actions. Very much take responsibility. If you fuck up, own it
Yeah,
and move past it then.
yeah, no,
And again, and well, not fully whereas me, my stepdad, or I would call him my dad really if I didn't know my dad, came along when I was 10, and he squared me away a lot. Again, he's very much ownership. You own it. It's fine to fuck up because we all fuck up. but don't lie, don't deny it.
Yeah, own it.
Just yeah. So I've been lucky with that. That was instilled from
Yeah.
quite a young age.
And certainly own what you're responsible for.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's times I didn't, and I got suitably punished for that.
Yeah, hell yeah, yeah. It's and but again, a bit like being vulnerable and admitting weakness. If you've got stuck in a pattern of every worries me, everything happens to me, it's very difficult to break as well. Very difficult to break, but it can be done. It can
Absolutely.
be done. It can 100% be done.
So let's move on to some tools then. So what tools can we instill if we go with our bearings? Understand, adapt, evolve, overcome.
Mm-hmm.
How can we use those to move past victimhood or a victimhood mindset?
I think it starts with gratitude and reverence.
Reverence. Explain reverence for explain it for me.
Well, it's a great Parkway Drive album, by the way.
Very good Parkway Drive album.
Reverence is practicing gratitude, right? Practicing gratitude, and like in a religious setting, it would be prayer. Now, I'm not saying that you have to become religious and follow a religion, but there's a growing conversation that we left religion behind in Western societies, but we didn't replace it with anything. And if we did replace it with something, it's actually we're not worshipping God anymore. We're worshipping ourselves. So that the
community,
the concept is that we are like, because of social media, etc. We are just literally worshipping the God of ourselves. It's like, look what I'm doing. Look at how good my life is. I'm awesome. Everybody give me likes. And I think that look, again, I'm not opposed to religion. I'm not for it. I'm kind of neutral to it. But I think the practice of gratitude can give you a level head and perspective. If you're in that mindset of everything happens to me, why does everything happen to me? The world is against me. If you can stop that negative thought cycle in its path and go, what am I grateful for? What is good in my life? It should start to cancel out or dampen down the noise of all those negative thoughts in your head.
Well, yeah, if you're a half glass empty person, and suddenly you're looking for the things you're grateful or the good things that have happened that day, for example, suddenly your glass is half full because you go, yeah, there's that one really bad thing, but actually I've got this, this, and this around me. Actually, as well, community or surrounding yourself with the right people as well. I've always said this in a gym setting is negativity breeds negativity. And you only have one person's head that drops. I bet you found this in the Marines. One person's head drops on exercise. Suddenly you've got everyone's now, oh, this fucking shit, oh, woe is me. When actually, if you like, come on, lads, we've got to do this. Let's move through it. It'll end when it ends.
Yeah.
There's a stoicism to that.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, one thing I think it's come up before is certainly in that CrossFit setting, for example, or we're doing a workout where we're competing. If the person I'm working against starts to show weakness, I thrive off that.
Yeah, you and me are both sociopaths.
I'm like, right, you're in pain. I'm all right. I'm going to use that as energy. So it just makes me go harder. Now,
it's blood in the water.
Yeah. Now, I think that's important to mention. If your mindset is, woe is me, I feel weak, everything's going wrong, there are sharks out there in the world, in life, that are around you that will sense that and they will take advantage of it for their own insidious motivations. They're like, right, you're weak, I'm going to get past you, over you, I'm going to eat you.
Yeah, and I mean that comes, I think, with competitiveness. I mean, I can think of, so I'm a weakness of mine was running, and I'm not built for running. I'm 5'8" and about 100 kilos, 90 kilos on a good year. But, I forced myself through jealousy, to be honest, of how good at running you were, and frustration that I couldn't keep up with you. And that got me really into running half marathons, 10Ks, 5Ks. And I got my mile down to about 6:20, I think
Yeah, it was good.
was back in the day. No chance of that anymore.
Mm.
And I ran in the countryside. I'm a village boy, so hills. And then you go to some of these half marathons where they're flat and it's raining, and you just watch people's heads drop. And actually, I feed off that. I'm like, sweet, I'm not going to finish as bad as those people now. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's the right setting for that. I don't know.
Well,
But
no, it's just what I think. What I'm trying to get at is that, like, I think in competition, you can use that as a tool to like gear you up. It's like, okay, I'm feeling good. This person's suffering now. It's a bit like when you're rolling in a jiu-jitsu. It's like, okay, I've still got some gas in the tank. I can feel this person's is ebbing away. So I'm going to actually go for it now. But in a real world situation, if you are just giving out negative vibes, you're going to get that back, and you're also going to get people that will prey on you. 100%. And that's why I think it's important from an early age. Is like, we're parents. It's very important to me as a father that I get across gratitude and perspective to my children, and taking ownership of things, and not letting it ruin you when people are what are perceived doing things to you. Because you know what kids are like. It's like they will go after you. They're like, right, I'm getting a reaction. I'm just going to do it more.
Yep. One thing I ask my lad every day is what's the best thing that's happened today? What's your favourite thing that's happened today?
Yeah, I do that.
And usually it's like, I don't know, but
yeah, and then you have to tease it out, and then eventually they'll come up with something. You're like, yeah. So yeah, I think it starts with gratitude. That'll give you a level head.
How do we adapt then?
Well, I think once you've got a level head, you can then explore vulnerability. Once you've got a level head perspective and go, accept, okay, that's what's gone wrong. This is what I can take responsibility and ownership for. What do I need to do? Like, what skills do I need to do to improve? Even if it's just a basic thing, like not getting emotionally invested in something. I had a very important meeting yesterday, and I was going into it with a negative mindset because I was assuming the worst. And again, I'm constantly trying to learn and evolve myself. I had to, before I went into that meeting, I caught myself in a spiral, and I had to give myself perspective and gratitude. So I'm grateful for this opportunity. I've worked really hard to get this product to a place that I'm happy with. I've controlled those things. I've influenced those things. I can't control how people are going to react to it. But what I can do is adapt my emotional mindset to it. And what I mean by my emotional mindset is I was emotionally invested because the whole tribal thing kicked in. Oh, they're going to hate this. They're not going to like me. They're going to push me out. They're going to ostracize me. And when I detached myself emotionally, I was able to perform at my best in that environment.
There's also those feelings as well of, if they hate this, I'm a shit human. Yeah. And that's not what that means. Right. And yeah, as you say, it's detaching. So we sort of move past it, understand and explore vulnerability, and go to a growth mindset.
Yeah, that's it.
How can we be better?
How can I grow? And that takes us nicely into evolve, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna learn a new skill, what did you say about learning new skills? How many reps? You said before about repetition.
I believe muscle memory. So there's the 10,000 hours is to be professional at something.
Oh right. Okay.
Which is an interesting book. Repetitions, I believe scientists believe it's, or researchers believe it's anywhere between 300 and 3,000 repetitions of something.
Yeah, you got to believe the science. You got to trust the science.
Trust the science. Well, look, I know I was drilled every session was at least 100 jumps from a power stance, so feet under hips, into a squat stance, into a squat. I could do that now, and I will be pretty accurate. And it's been a few months since I've done Olympic style weightlifting. Yeah. It drills it in, but it has to be focused practice. You can't just do 3,000 reps and be like, oh, I'm going to be the most accurate striker in the world, for example. If you're looking at punching, it needs to be 3,000 focused, dedicated, actually practiced reps, not just throwing your arm.
Yeah, and if we bring that back to this a second, regardless of the number of repetitions, you're just gonna have to keep doing it. It's not gonna set in. Like for me, not to get emotionally invested in criticism, I'm only just about now getting to a standard that I'm relatively happy with my ability to not emotionally react when I get criticised, and that's taken 5 years full time as a trainer in this environment.
Yeah,
because instinctively
it's still every now and then.
Yeah, I do.
You have bumps in the road. We have conversations.
I do, and it comes from the fact that I'm very critical of myself, and I always want to improve. It's just that I'm getting emotionally invested in what other people think that don't really have a stake in my life moving forward. And I've done a lot of work to. And again, it was victimhood. It was like, why is that person doing this to me? What have I done, etc. And I can't control what they're going to say. It'd be nice if we could bump into everybody and they're nice people. They're not. You are going to bump into people that aren't very nice. So we're grateful. We understand what we're grateful for. We adapt our thought patterns and we identify where we need to improve. And we practice it, evolution through repetition. And then the overcome is we accept that you are going to get knocked on your ass again. It's not going to instinctively, right, I've learned this new skill, I'll put it into practice first time and it's going to work. No, sometimes maybe, but then you may go 5 times, oh, that worked. And then number 6 didn't work.
There's always going to be bumps in the road and paths we've not taken that throw us off. Usually in my experiences, you get in a good place where, my new thought process is working, and then you experience a situation that's different to what you're now used to. It throws a curveball, and then suddenly that 10-year-old child again comes back out, and you end up feeling vulnerable again or feeling weak again.
I think, in summary, though, if you have a victimhood mindset, you will not grow. You'll get stuck. You're not going anywhere. And you will be stationary forever until you decide, enough, I need to move. I need to move forward, or I need to move a different direction because I'm stagnant. I'm not going anywhere.
It's like being, the best analogy I can think of is, when you go to like an aquarium to buy fish, or a fish pet shop, I don't know what it's called, but
aquarium.
It is an aquarium, yeah. But I was thinking of aquarium, somewhere you go to view them, but
fish shop.
Fish shop.
I'm going to go get some fish from the fish shop. What, they're going to be battered
from the toilet store. But you've got these goldfish in little plastic bags in a big tank.
Yeah.
Right, that's that victimhood. Essentially, they're stuck in this. They can see everything, but they can't move past it. They can't actually swim anywhere. So they're stuck in this little plastic bag inside a big tank.
Yeah, that
mindset.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, I do feel sorry for the fish now. If that fish understood victimhood mentality, I would empathise with the fish. 100%.
Right then, is that everything covered with us? I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, excellent.
I think so.
Well, we shall move on then, and we shall see you next week for another instalment of the Find Your Mindset podcast.
Happy days. Well, good speaking to you, brother.
You too, dude. Take care. Bye.
Bye.